All right, welcome to this podcast. I'm hanging out with my friend Anthony Lynch with Kat. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, no, it's we've been talking about doing this forever, so I'm glad we finally got to have lunch together and do a podcast.
Well, it's been a long time coming. And hopefully we can have a few more of these over the next few years.
I'd like that for sure. So I feel like I've known you for a long time. You've been in the industry for how many years?
I'd say we're close to 20 now.
Is that right, eh?
Yeah.
So what so let's start at the beginning. Born in Montreal.
Yep.
So what brought you to how old were you when you moved to Calgary?
10.
10 years old?
40 years ago.
Craziness, eh?
Yeah.
And so Calgary's home?
Calgary is home. We have like properties.
Here, sorry, speaking to the mic there. Just turn it for a bit. There we go.
Better?
Oh, way better.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, don't apologize to me.
Sorry to the fans.
Exactly.
No, basically moved here from Montreal when I was 10. Was more of a family decision, obviously.
Yeah.
Single mom, just trying to make a better life for her and her two kids at the time.
Yeah.
So we moved here. Kind of crazy experience of like being from an immigrant family. Actually, primary language spoke at home was English, but had to go to French school when I lived in Quebec. So being in Montreal, I went to actually an all French school for the first 5 years of schooling.
Yeah.
Failed a couple times, moved out here. Failed again, but was put into the appropriate grade. Never been in grade 3, which I think is super hilarious. I don't really talk about that often.
Yeah.
But kind of fun. But then moved here and had some adversities, had some problems and troubles just with the English language and learning it. But here I am now, gone to college,
Yeah.
Graduated high school, lovely things that have happened in my life.
Yeah, so growing up, Montreal, and then because I always feel, bad for kids that have to do that. You're at that age. I've had this conversation with my kids where, I think if we were to move, they would probably kill me because they have their friends, they have everything. So for you to do such a drastic move where you're going from Montreal to Calgary as a kid, what was that like for you? Was it?
It was early 80s. I don't. Sensitivity is way more prevalent now. I mean,
Right.
we're constantly concerned about how we address people and how we talk to people, and I think that's important. But I do believe that some of that adversity and some of those things being said and those mean-spirited things, to be very honest, they're important. I think what they do is they build character.
Right.
Help you teach you how to deal with adversity and not being concerned with what someone thinks and knowing that you are strong enough to persevere regardless.
Right. Yeah. No, actually, I was having that conversation with one of my daughters. She's a teenager now, so she's going through things that she never probably thought she'd have to deal with, right? So she's, with sports and stuff like that and different friend groups and stuff. And I said, do you think my job as a dad is to help you avoid adversity or help you deal with adversity? And she said, I think it's to help me deal with it. So now you don't want to, make things harder for people than they have to be. But yeah, adversity can be a good thing. So when you look back at your childhood, is that how you kind of look at it then?
I look at it as it's made me the man that I am now.
Right.
I'm okay with hearing no. And in the business that I'm in currently, hear it often. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with, maybe it doesn't work for this moment. Maybe it's just not the right timing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, you give up and become defeated.
Yeah.
I feel that it more is a character builder.
So Calgary, you move here when you're 10 years old. What was it about Calgary that as you got older you decided this is going to be your home? What do you like about Calgary?
Honestly,
200.
No, I always say honestly, and it's always honestly because
Yeah.
I mean I don't want to lie to anyone, but to be honest with you, it's the 265 days approximately of sunlight that we get.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be cold as heck.
Yeah. Well, today's a great example.
Yeah,
It's a bluebird day. It's minus 18, but it's bluebird.
Yeah, and it's beautiful out, and that is one of the primary things. I mean, I go back to Montreal.
Yeah.
It's odd because I never learned how to drive there. I learned how to drive here, but I can drive there. And I know lots of people that go there that can't drive there.
Why? What's the difference?
It's no one has their license. That's the difference. Everyone is kind of drives with their learning permits. Like, they drive well.
Yeah.
But it's just a different beast. Like, in here, people don't let you in.
Yeah.
As an example. So it's kind of a combination of being taught by people that drove there. But it's just a funny thing because I remember these key spots and how to get to certain places.
Right.
So that's the other side to it. But I also do like driving,
Yeah.
which makes my job a lot easier because I don't mind traveling around the city.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you do, or I'm trying to picture you as a young punk in Calgary. What did you want to be when you grew up? What was kind of your vision for life?
Oh God, chef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it about that? Because you've been in the hospitality industry for a long time, and you seem to be well suited to it. So back then, if you think about wanting to be a chef, what would it have been that kind of put you onto that?
I think it's really because my mom made this statement to me back when I was 8-9 years old. And like, it's something that stuck with me and I'll never forget it. And it was, you know what, Anthony, like, I don't ever want you to depend on a woman
Right.
to eat.
That's fair.
Many, like, back, like, kids like toast and this, like, okay, make yourself like grilled cheese sandwich or whatever.
Yeah.
But I got to the point where I liked cooking different things.
Yeah.
So for myself and my mom being a single mom, I was a latchkey kid. I had a brother, he's 5 years younger than me, Aston, and I would my mom would make us dinner, but I would have to heat up dinner for us. And then it got to the point where she wouldn't. Not that she didn't. I'd be like, I think I'm going to make dinner tonight. So I would actually try to cook something.
So she taught you independence.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah. I hate admitting it because that's giving Serlene a lot of credit. But,
we don't have to give her too much. We'll just end it there.
No. Seriously though, that was part of the reason why. But then I also had a knack for electronics. Yeah. And so I took the opposite route. Still cook, and I love to cook, and I'm decent at it. But selling, and it just everything kind of went into this one tunnel where it's like, what I do is like a combination of so many different things.
Yeah. Well, so what you mentioned, what was your job before you got into the beer industry? Because it seems to me that you kind of did a 180. So what were you doing before we would have met? So before you got into the beer industry? Before we met,
I worked for a company called ADT.
Okay.
So they do home security.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was, I was on the home security side. I worked corporately for them. It was kind of fun, just because I could go in and I could, create an image of security and safety for a family. And it was kind of hard sometimes because I never wanted to be in that situation where you take advantage of a situation. But to a degree, it became super easy where it's like, you need this here.
Right.
You need that here. And I didn't like that, side of it. So that started to stress me out.
Yeah.
And, I just decided it wasn't, I did it for 6 years and I just decided it wasn't for me.
Yeah. So then how did you transition into hospitality?
I used to go to a pub, Shawnee Irish, and I asked Heather, the general manager there at the time. I just said, hey, I think I'd like to bartend here once in a blue moon.
So no experience as a bartender at the time?
I was a busboy back when I was, in junior high school, at Denny's on McLeod Trail in 75th.
Yeah.
And I worked at J.R. Houston's, which is now the Earl's on right across the street. Yeah. And I was a busboy at one spot, and I worked in the kitchen at another. And I learned that I can get along with people and be social. And that's, that's going back a little bit. But then I was just like, I could do this. I haven't, but I know I can.
Right.
If I can't do it, in theory, I don't feel if I can't do it, it can't be done.
Right.
I kind of just feel that way. I know like I can't go in and say, okay, I'm going to take over and do some brain surgery or anything like that. However,
Yeah.
there's lots of skills that I have that I know I can do.
Absolutely.
And you've just got to have that confidence in yourself.
Yeah. So then, did you work in any other, restaurant type settings before you got into kind of the craft beer community?
Literally, it was the first setting that I worked at as an adult was Shawnee Irish Pub. And then after that, I went to Wild Rose Brewery.
Yeah. So Wild Rose. So what was it about Wild Rose? How did you get into that?
Well, knew a few people that were working there or had worked with me at Shawnee.
Right.
And just they had the beer. They had some of their products on with the group at the time, which should have been Double Arrow group. They made some of the beers for them, and just seemed like some really good people. And it was nice guy Ryan Kay that came through, and it was like a lovely person, great attitude, and learned a lot about craft beer, just kind of chatting with him and chatting with the group of people that I would talk to.
Yeah. And
so basically, I actually got fired from Shawnee for partying a little too much. That's one of the things that happens. Well, it happens when we join this industry. It's funny, right? Because when I tell people now, like I sell beer, I drink enough. But when I talk about it, they're like, "Oh, that'd be a great job. I can drink a ton." And that's not how this industry works,
No.
There's another side to it where you have to be, you have to have that professionalism. You have to do your follow-ups. You need to make sure that, you're walking into every establishment that you walk into, it's your best foot forward. And you can't be a drunken fool.
Yeah.
You have to have composure. You have to be kind of a certain way where you're fun, but not drunken fun.
No, you have to be, and I think a lot of people see what, someone like yourself does, and they think, oh, that, because a good salesperson is in the beer industry, especially, I would say, makes it look easy and makes it look fun. And it can be fun, but you have to be a professional first, right?
100.
Because I've seen a lot of people try to do what you do and fail quickly at it because they realize, oh shit, there's way more to this than what I thought.
Yeah, 100%. For myself, my biggest challenge is sometimes my reporting.
Yeah,
it's hard. I love my job and it's easy, and lots of it is easy. But sometimes, like those little things that just aren't. When you're a salesperson, your mouth is always flapping.
Right.
But then I've learned how to just now not let my gums flap as much and just actually listen a little more. So, right. But the hard thing is like then getting that in a report and making sure that everyone that's within the organization knows exactly what I'm doing. So sometimes I struggle with that a little. But other than that, it's just a fun environment to be in. You make lots of great, like allies within the industry and contacts within the industry where, although we are we are trying to gain and garner these taps and these lines, we have other people that, don't sell the same product. So it's like, hey, you should go to this place because of this or that. Like, it's not as combative as you think it would be.
There's a collaboration. What do they call that?
Like,
it's a compound. They're collaboration / competition, right?
Yeah. Because we're doing a collab as an example with Alley Cat right now. We got one that's going to be coming out with Kat Brewing. Yeah. As an example, right? But we just did one with Fallen Timber. We've done, we've worked with Sunny Cider. Yeah. And these are things that, I've helped to because these are a lot of Calgary breweries. These are things that I've kind of said, hey, we should try this. We should try and they agree. Cam French and Lachlan Fredrickson, they're great. They agree and they're like, yeah. It's just now with our brewing schedule, how does it all come together? How does it work? We've done collabs in the past with Grizzly Paw. There's lots of fun things that we do. So we always want it to we always want it to be where yes, we're in competition, but we also are, what are we about? Making dynamic and great beers in this industry,
Yeah.
you know.
So how long have you been with LMFAB for then?
So May 2nd will be my second anniversary with LMFAB, which is like a fairly short time. But, you know, in my past, you know, kind of going back, like, you know, working for Wild Rose, you know, that was 8 years just about of, you know, helping make beer, learning how that happens, giving tours.
Yeah.
You know, to filling kegs and learning all the dynamics of that business.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun.
So you learned, you know, how that brewery started or how that brewery operates, like from kind of like the floor level all the way up. What was your takeaway from your time? Because 8 years with the company is a long time. What was your takeaway when you left Wild Rose?
Is when you have great leadership and great cohorts and coworkers, anything is possible. I mean, just recently I had shares in the company, and you know, they were just acquired recently by Siemens, and like for me that's great. Like I worked for them, I proved my worth, became a shareholder in the organization, got paid out for being a shareholder, and I think that part of what I did and part of who I was to build some of the complexity of, you know, what they have now helped. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's it.
Well, and I think with, there's certain brands where there is that authenticity and you know, I always got that from Wild Rose, you know, there was something about them that was, you know, they were one of the original ones, you know, like I remember visiting their first brewery.
The Industrial Park Ale.
Yeah. You know, and
I know, right?
So just to see like where they started from and you're totally right. You have to build a team of people that really believe in what you're doing. So did you go right from Wild Rose to Alley Cat then?
No, actually so after I left Wild Rose, I actually just did tastings.
Okay.
I kind of left the business alone, but kept my foot in. So worked with a gentleman named Neil Smithson.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so Neil had some like really dynamic brands.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the godfathers of craft beer. So I actually sold and worked with and did tastings for Deschutes, Sierra Nevada.
Nice.
Ballast Point, Lakefront for New Grist, which is like a gluten-free product, which was kind of innovative at the time.
Yeah.
So for myself, it's like I got to work with these like crazy products, and I worked with him for 3 years. But I also had a small company, going back to my electronic roots.
Okay.
So I actually had a small electronic recycling company, trying to reduce zero footprint, and that was a lot of fun. You know, I had like Apple dealerships that I used to deal with, where I would take their old products. I'm an electrical tech guy, so I would actually build and rebuild computers and sell them.
Right. So how did you think? So I'm just sorry.
I know we're jumping all over the place.
But I
right?
love that though. I love that because I feel like, you know, when you're telling me this stuff, you're looking at things and going like, oh, I see an opportunity there. So, you know, with Shaughneke's, you had never been, you know, necessarily in the hospitality industry, but you saw something that you thought might be of interest to you. So you kind of obviously went out and got it. So so going back into electronics, where did that come from, that idea?
I mean, I guess it kind of comes from like my family, my uncle. Like one of my uncles is like, you know, self-made millionaire. Like he's made a lot of money in his life. And basically it comes from him because when I was younger, I used to go to Montreal, spend my summers down there. Yeah. You know, and would, you know, help him work on his store, and he would ship antiques to Boston for antique shows, and I would go down for the summer, slave labor back then, you know, clearly. but basically go and help him move stuff and move equipment around. Right. And so the capture of just wanting to do and have fun doing stuff that you like that makes money. So like, for me, it's, I love what I do first. The money is important, need it to survive, but it's not the end all be all.
Right.
I would take less to be happy.
Right. So was your uncle, would you consider him, when you look back, kind of a mentor for you then?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and what did he do, sorry?
Well, so he actually sold used furniture.
Yeah.
And new.
Yeah.
So in Montreal, there's lots of warehouses, right? Kind of like, Schmed used to be around where you could go and you could buy from their ding and damage and their open stock. He would go and pick up and have like magazines and that people could look through and say, I want this. And he would order it for them, having some models in the store, but order and deliver.
Oh, wow.
And it, and he did well with it.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of, like, it was a lot of fun. Like, I would go down in the summer to Montreal, when I was in my teens.
Yeah.
Wanting to help my uncle, wanting to see him thrive and succeed.
That's awesome.
And I spent a year there living there as an adult.
Yeah.
I opened up a bookstore. It was hilarious because he's like, I think this is a market that you should like look at. And I'm like, okay. And there was an opportunity to rent this little space. It cost me $200 a month.
Oh, wow.
But I sold books.
Nice.
Which is hilarious. I don't tell lots of these stories, right? But today I figured, like, why not?
Absolutely.
This is where, and that failed.
So was it, and
as an example, that failed. But
that's fine. Failure is part of the process.
100%, my friend. 100.
So was this an existing bookstore, or you just rented the space and said, let's go find some books and see if we can sell them?
Rented the space, and I primarily focused on National Geographics, like some magazines. Yeah. But classic magazines. So like this is back in like the 90s, late 90s. Right. And what we would do is we'd go to like estate sales and garage sales and in Montreal there's a lot of antiques, there's a lot of like old money and old things there. Yeah. 400-year-old city, right? 400 plus actually. And so what we would do is I'd be like, okay, I think I want to buy these magazines. So I'd buy like a box of these like old National Geographics from like the 1940s, which people collected. Yeah. So I would like sell those, and I'd be like, yeah, it's 5 times the sticker price. Yeah. And it was fun. Like it was a fun time for myself. Like working in his store, I sold this TV, and I'll never forget it. I sold this TV it was this very old, very not should have been sold for what I sold it for, and I think I sold it for like $125. And he was like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "Oh, you told me to sell it. I just sold it." He's like, "Anthony, you could have done it for like $25. We got it for nothing." I'm like, "No, that's not how this works." That was the ruthless side. He's the one that calmed me down and said, "No, this is not how you do things. You need to be also compassionate about it. You want to make profit 100%, but don't forget that, without a warranty, without this, you can't do that kind of stuff." Right. And that's, going back to me doing electronics. I offered warranties, which is hilarious, right? Because I had a superior product that I was able to offer. Yeah. So that's why, like working with breweries that I've worked with some like pretty awesome breweries like Wild Rose, 96, Alley Cat, 95. One of the OGs in the industry. Totally. Sierra Nevada, Deschutes. The list kind of grows and goes. Yeah.
Yeah, Sierra Nevada. He's they're like, if you're in the beer industry, back when everyone was trying to make a pale ale, like theirs was the one that everyone was kind of gunning for. So you see it all. One of the things that I'm really impressed with Alley Cat, we were talking about your team earlier today, and just their ability, like you said, OGs, but their ability to, continuously kind of reinvent themselves, yet stay with the things that made them successful to begin with. So maybe talk a little bit about your 2 years that you've been with Alley Cat. Like, what is it about Alley Cat that you think is special?
Well, if I really have to start, I'd have to start with just the team. Yeah. And I don't want to pull any specific names. I've already mentioned 2. I could mention another 2 or 5 or 20, because the entire team that I work with is amazing. From people in finance, from the people that work in the back, from, everyone that's there matters and cares about what we do. And the thing that's great for us is our whole thing is we make and we concentrate and focus on the fruit side of the business.
Yeah.
And I think we make some of the best products. So for myself, one of the things that was cool, my first shift was in Edmonton at ABF.
Okay, yeah.
May the 4th.
Yeah.
I think it was Edmonton. Yeah.
No, May the 4th would have been Calgary.
Was it Calgary? Okay,
yeah.
So Lachlan was down, Sarah was down.
Yeah.
And it was funny for myself because we have this beer, Mangalorian. It's like a fun beer.
Yeah.
But, I was doing all sorts of nonsense, like May the 4th be with you, and that just because of the days that the show was on. Mm-hmm. But then, people saying to me, hey, Apricot, where is it? Do you have it here today? I'm like, actually, we do. And then how many people said, this is the first craft beer that I ever enjoyed.
Right.
And it brought me to the craft beer world. That was really cool. Never really got to know Neil, as an example, but, a very impactful man in the industry, as was Mike Timchuk, who I did work with, with Wild Rose.
With Wild Rose, yeah.
So that's kind of cool. Like, that side of it's really cool. But then to have, a guy like Cam French, not wanting to compromise and sticking with the formula that has worked.
Yeah.
But coming up with now more innovative products. And that's what it's been. That's all I've been involved in, is the innovation side. Like, whenever a new beer comes out, it's like, what do you think of this name? This is what we'd like to do. Any suggestions for names? Pardon me, the team is just amazing. Yeah. Like, it's just, when you find people I like going up to Edmonton, and I spend my own time in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Just because I did a bit of work when I've worked for other breweries going up to Edmonton, but now I have a home because I'm the remote guy.
Right.
It's an Edmonton brewery. I'm the remote guy. So I want to go up. I want to be there. One of the things Christmas parties, excellent. They make sure that I'm welcome and I'm invited and and I'm well received. But, team builders, funny story of the last team builder we had, go to do Pedal Pub.
Yeah.
And so the owner of Pedal Pub, him and I golfed together for a whole season. And Cam's like, do you know everyone? And I'm like, I don't know anyone, but I do know a few people.
Right.
And it just so happens that they're in the business that we're talking about. So I look like a star only because I've been around this industry a little bit.
Totally.
And I've been on both sides.
Yeah.
Behind and in front of the bar. I mean, when I left, when I was at Wild Rose, some of the other things I did is I managed Murdoch's and Eddie Bodine's. So that spot.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was a GM there, or AGM, sorry.
Yeah.
Under Mike Hope and Mike O'Grady.
Yeah.
Good friends of Mike Timchuk. I was the assistant general manager. Well, I was the manager underneath the owner of Beatnik, which was a jazz club.
Yeah.
So one of the cool jobs I had, which goes back to talking in public, was introducing live jazz bands that were going to perform on a Friday or Saturday night.
So we were talking about that a little bit earlier today with Beatnik as an example. As we were driving around and you see, you can still see, and I'm sure other cities are like this, but you literally buildings getting bulldozed, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I talk about a lot with friends is, live music places. There's one in Inglewood that just shut down. There's just not a lot of live music venues anymore. What's your thought on that? How do we, you were talking specifically of Beatnik and how, I guess that kind of impacted you in losing that. But, what's your thought on how cities are doing that? And is there any way to kind of, bring the live music back and that sort of thing?
I mean, I think that some of the things are being covered by these organizations like Sled Island, Big Winter Festival, that just occurred, which we were part of with Alley Cat. I mean, part of it for myself is if there's music that you like be a little more involved with the arts.
Yeah.
You know, because I think that's something that's neglected a little bit. We're a young city with young people, and I know that times are kind of tough, but whatever little support we can give.
Yeah.
You know, we have like spots like the Blues Can, kind of like that whole situation. That's unfortunate, and I don't have enough information to really elaborate on that.
Right.
But you know, I just this summer just went to Iron Goat. Sorry, not Iron Goat. To on the corner there of 11th. Ironwood Stage, sorry.
Or in Inglewood?
No, in Inglewood,
Yeah.
I was thinking Iron Goat out in Canmore,
yeah.
which is like delicious duck wings. There's your plug, guys.
Yeah.
But like with Ironwood Stage, you know, that's just a place that can do and should have support. Mikey's Jute, you know, like these are all little venues that we can just go out once in a blue moon. Let's make an opportunity of it.
Yeah.
You know, and try to support that side. Like for me, it's jazz. Like I really like jazz, and there's not really a jazz venue. It's all blues, you know. Support the King Eddie, like that's more blues, but like support these things. And it's sad for me because I really like jazz. Like I love Miles, and I love John Coltrane and Miles Davis, and you know we're probably gonna lose someone here real quick if we haven't already. Is Herb Alpert, you know, one of the founding, you know, people of AMA Records.
Okay.
Who's, you know, he is in his 90s and still can perform. You know, we lost, you know, we've just lose a lot of these influential people.
Right.
But that, for me, jazz is something that I really enjoy, and I don't get to hear it. You know, I would listen to Take 5, Dave Brubeck, the other day, which was brilliant. I was hanging out with some friends. I'm like, I got this cool song you got to hear.
Yeah.
They'd never heard of it, and it's such an iconic song. So for me, I kind of wish that, you know, we're losing these buildings and we're losing these character situations. And I mean, you know, Jazz Calgary YYC is like something that, you know, you could like talk to Jerry Hebert and talk to these people and see what they have going on. Talk to anyone that's in the blues community and see what's going on with them. And, you know, like we have a lot of fun as Calgarians whenever there's something going on. But sometimes it, you know, like just like our Flames, we have a hard time sticking behind them when things get a little rough.
Yes, that's fair.
And
that's a good comparison.
I thought it was a fair comparison because, you know, our fans can be lackadaisical at times and go like, they're not really performing, so, you know, forget them.
Yeah.
And then when they're winning, like, oh, they're red hot right now.
Yeah.
So
then the jerseys come out.
Well, 100%. And I've actually been thinking about just sporting my jersey every time they're playing, no matter where I go.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be kind of cool because I'm a Montreal Canadian fan, so it doesn't really matter if they're winning or losing to me.
Yeah.
You know.
You're still a Montreal fan.
Well, you know,
You've been here 40 years. You gotta.
Come on, dog. I mean, it's just it's Montreal. It's the dirtiest, nastiest, most loveliest, beautifulest city in Canada. You know. And that's how I feel about Montreal. So it's a hard one for me to just say, yeah, forget you.
That's fair. That's fair. You have a good reason to be a Montreal fan. I grew up in halfway between Calgary and Edmonton. So I grew up in Red Deer, and I was born in St. Albert. So I grew up as an Oilers fan. So, but having said that, my dad was always a big believer in you have to cheer for the city that you live in. And so I'm an Oilers fan, but definitely when I'm watching the Flames, I'm not one of those like anyone but Calgary kind of fans. I'm like, I definitely want to support, because when the Flames are doing good, the city has an energy about it, right?
It's electric, man.
Yeah.
And for our business, on top of that,
Totally.
You know, and so I mean, for myself, I want to see Edmonton succeed, and I mean, they have one of the best players in the league. Yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, I'm not a big hockey guy, but I like hockey and I like watching it. You know. I mean, I can do each of those sports individually. I can play golf, I can ice skate, and I can box. But I can't do all of them at the same time and manage a puck, is what I'm trying to say.
Anytime someone says I can ice skate, it means they're not very good at hockey, because I've never heard anyone refer to it as ice skating before. But
I was thinking figure skating. You know?
The double sow cow. So curious, because I've had a few conversations with people in the industry over the last, over the last 20 years, but specifically in the last few months, things are, for a lot of people, are challenging. And we were actually having that conversation. We were out for lunch and talking to the local restaurant owner. Things are challenging across hospitality. How have you seen, in your 10, 12 years in the industry, or last, say, decade in the industry, how have you seen things change? And a couple of things that I'm thinking about is, one is you've kind of seen the craft beer industry mature, right? So we're seeing challenges, but you kind of saw that whole wave of, a whole bunch of new ones, coming up. And now as the industry is maturing, there's things that, people are trying to figure out. But then also too with restaurants and stuff, they've been around. It's not to say that the restaurant industry is new, yet they're facing similar challenges. So what's your thoughts on that?
It's so interesting, like bringing that up and just having that comment, because I have spots that have had lots of success in the past that are having some struggles right now, and then some that have had that are seeing growth year over year over year. I'm not sure what the right formula is, my good man. Like I'm trying to, like, I mean, as my job, I'm always trying to figure out who's hot, who's moving liquid, like, but it's a hard one to really put your thumb on, because it could be the change of management that actually affects how they bring their clientele in. As an example, like for myself, January, and I think for a lot of people in this industry, maybe I'm wrong, but the few that I talk to, some of the ones that I enjoy those conversations with, that are like fun and happy, but also about competition.
Right.
And some of them are like, yeah, we were up, and some of them were like, we were down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, part of, I feel what it is innovative brand products and recognition is probably a big part of what has helped the industry. So, you have some of these like amazing sours, these hazies that like everyone loves, but they're coming to a fade as well to a certain degree. So I think it's always about innovative products is kind of like what will help growth within this industry, because it's so hard to figure out, like, okay, talk about doing like a tangerine or a blood orange beer, or, a cherry sour, which we have coming up, or we did this weird beer, which was like a lot of fun, like, which was a blueberry sour. And we take from what we have to try to, what can we do to grow that number that we had that didn't hit the point that we wanted to be at?
Right.
So it's just a hard analysis to generate, because it's just as difficult. Like, that's what these shows, like, doing like Alberta Food and Beverage, like your show, doing ABF, doing like Alberta Food and Beverage Expo, like, this is how we figure out like what our clientele like.
Right.
Like, does this work? How well is this working?
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things is, because the way restaurants are, like, it's all about finances right now. Like, a person is more likely to potentially pick up a 4-pack with their cheap beer because of how the Calgary market has been. But there's also been just that, what I want to call is, like, we've had this like explosion, and now there's this like cannibalization that's happening to a certain degree, where some of them are, some organizations aren't gaining the traction that they used to gain.
Right. And
that's where it's always a hard matrix to judge, because there's always new players coming into the playing field. Some are leaving, and there's just these innovative products that are being made by some of the old schoolers, some of these innovative products being made by the new guys, that it's just a really hard thing to literally dial down.
To say, like, here's exactly what it is. Well, I think that's where Alley Cat's unique, is that you kind of have that hybrid of, you are innovating, but at the same time you have kind of your core, and you have your tradition, and you have the kind of like, this is where we're from. And I think that kind of positions you guys uniquely. I'm curious, as you kind of do your day-to-day stuff, because there are, I think of it as, a new person coming into the industry. And like we were talking about this a little bit earlier, where they think, oh, selling beer, beer sells itself. That would be easy. What advice would you give to somebody who's new at this? That maybe thinks it's easy and they're about to get a rude awakening.
I think that it's really within you.
Yeah.
If you're someone that just can't handle, to be honest, it's the hardest part of it is being told no.
Right.
Because you hear no more than you hear yes. So if you're a person that can celebrate your wins and take them as massive victories, recognizing your losses as a strategy to develop and work on, potentially working on them by just gaining a relationship to the point where they say, just leave me alone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where my mind, and that's what I've done. I've worked on some accounts where they've told me no, and of recently not to be mentioned, but I've gained something that's like fun because I've worked on it, and they finally said yes.
Yeah.
And AGLC rules say I can't say who it is, so I'm not going to. But it's a fun one for me because I worked on it, and I didn't just get one product line in. I got 4 of our products into that store. And so like a new person coming in, celebrate your victories, watch how much you drink for the first 6 months. Well, 3.
Yeah.
No, 6.
Well, no, but that's honestly it, right? Because they see you, if you're out having a beer, they don't know, what you did during the day before you got to that point.
Yeah.
So they envision that that's what your job is.
Yeah.
You sit at this, and so there must be, it's the part of being in sales is the rejection part of it, right?
Yeah. But for myself, like as an example, like I'll have a couple of pints daily. That does happen. I don't finish them all the time. Sometimes I'll just order it, and I'll drink them. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
And the whole point of that is that's showing appreciation, but spreading that love around to all the accounts and the potential accounts that you're going to garner and gain.
Right.
So it's always being, and when I say daily, it's like sometimes I don't. Like last week, I didn't drink barely anything.
Yeah.
But you still have to go in. So it's like buying a patron of beer.
Right.
Like when I say I make that spend, sometimes it's just doing something for someone that's sitting there.
Right.
And that's part of the job. So it's just a dynamic set of things that happen. And I feel like I have this charisma about me. People kind of tend to like me. Sometimes I'm a jerk. Sometimes I'm not. I'm human. So, I mess up lots. But, I think for the most part, I just try to be real.
Yeah.
And know your business. Yeah. That's the other side to it. And know what the cost per ounce is. That's important to someone.
Is that kind of something that's new? Not new, but in terms of, like we were talking about CRMs and all that stuff earlier today.
Yeah.
Is it less shooting from the hip than it used to be, say, 8 years ago?
100.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 1,000. Because the whole objective, is, you want to have fun. You want to make it look easy. Like from the way I walk through what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I want to make it look easy, but I have to be on point.
Yeah.
And I have to say, hey, this is what we have for you. This is what your cost per ounce is. This is how we can help you make money. This is how we can support you. Whether it's, if you need cutouts, then we'll get you cutouts. If you need tastings, this is stuff that we can do. That's not an impact on any rules that are out there.
Yeah.
So you have to know who you're engaging with. You also have to know the other entity that you're engaging with. And that's kind of the thing, like the hard, or not hard, but that's the thing that you have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And so understanding the landscape, and it's, although I left, as an example, and I did a little bit of recycling, I still kept my finger on the pulse as far as, doing tastings, and keeping myself, known in the industry. And that was important for myself, right, in my growth. Like, I thank Neil Smithson for all the lessons that he taught me. He taught me a ton about this business. you know, and so like those things aren't lost on me as well.
Right. Yeah, because Neil comes more from an agency perspective, which is, I think, very numbers driven, right?
100%.
Like, you kind of learn the spreadsheet side of the industry versus the, you know, like I said, when the craft beer industry was new to Alberta, it was a little bit more shooting from the hip. So it is good to get both of those perspectives.
100%.
Sure.
And I mean, and the agency model doesn't bother me. I think when it gets to be too much, you know, then that can become a bit much.
Yeah.
You know, like the partnership. I mean, I'm drinking a Phillips, so I'll mention like the partnership with Phillips and Steam Whistle. Like that's a great combination, as an example.
It's a creative solution to a problem.
Yeah, because there's such a great presence for Steam Whistle in the East, and such a great presence for Phillips in the West. You know, and so like that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, that we've done this as well as an organization. We're helping someone and they're helping us.
Yeah.
You know, so we work with District a little bit now, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Because
they need a bit of help in Alberta, and we need a bit of help in Saskatchewan, and that's how you know, like being innovative and growing in the industry. So like the industry side of it, that's fun.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is like, you know, teaching charisma. You can't. I'm not saying that I'm the most charismatic person out there, but someone coming into the industry, just rewinding back to that, it's something that either it can be managed and you can do it, or else you can't.
Totally. And you have to understand there is those two parts of it. It isn't just charisma. There is the non-fun spreadsheet component to it, the CRM,
you know,
the collecting your receipts, all that shit.
You know, and even the cost per ounce, like that does not come across as fun. So let me explain this to you, okay, Mr. Customer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to cost you like this much per ounce. And, you know, if you sell it at this is going to be your gross margin. Like, that is not the fun part of talking to someone at all. Although I'm laughing and smiling, it's not fun.
Yeah.
Because I know some of it by heart now, but I still have to pull it out once in a while and go, okay, so this is what your numbers look like.
Yeah, totally.
And that's part of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it is a business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
No, you know what's cool, man, is like I said, I've been wanting to do this forever. I think that you've always been a good, you know, just person in the industry, always full of energy. But I really wanted to get kind of your perspective on, you know, what brings you back to the industry? What brought you here in the first place? You know, why do you love it? Because I think there's a lot, despite the challenges of the beer industry, despite the challenges of the hospitality industry. I think that there's just so many good people, you being one of them. And it's really cool to kind of get your insight. So thanks for doing this, man.
Well, I appreciate you. And on one last note, when you sell beer, and I'll leave it as a funny note, you always get invited to parties.
This is true. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you for your time.